This is Steve Kerr, and you're listening to the Morning Roast on 95.7 The Game.
Niners and Hawks, Saturday to open up the NFL playoffs. Man, season flew by. Third matchup of the season between these two bitter rivals in the NFC West. Niners, of course, have won both matchups. Week 2 against the Hawks at Levi Stadium. And then, of course, on Thursday Night Football just a few weeks ago where the Niners clinched the NFC West. And the guy who's going to be on the call, he's the voice of the Dodgers. All right? He's the voice of Fox Sports. He did a tremendous job coloring the World Series alongside John Smoltz as the Astros win. And, of course, Dusty Baker gets his first ring as manager, second ring overall in Major League Baseball. The great Joe Davis joins us here on the Morning Roast. It's been a while. Joe Shasky, the Butcher, Bonte Hill. Joe, good morning, man. First of all, congrats on all your successes. You did a phenomenal job during October calling the Major League Baseball playoffs, and now you wake up and now you're doing football games again. You're doing a hell of a job, Joe. Good morning.
Thank you, Bonte. I appreciate it, man. How are you guys doing?
We're good, man. We're fired up for Seahawks and Niners. The rivalry lives on with Pete Carroll and company, and they're going to come down here in wet and rainy conditions with Geno Smith and try to shock the world here. And let's start with Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy named the Offensive Rookie of the Month. We'll get to CMC in a second, but Brock Purdy, how would you summarize his tenure so far with the 49ers as you've seen him come in, step up for Jimmy Garoppolo, and the Niners not skip a beat?
Man, oh, man. So a couple things when it comes to Purdy. I had him a couple times in college at Iowa State, and he was impressive. He was fun. He was a good college quarterback, right, to help them turn that program around. I don't know if anybody there thought that was going to translate to the NFL, at least not like this. And then I was doing the Miami game when Garoppolo got hurt. Purdy came in, and at that point it was like, oh, boy. Yeah. Can they, obviously this is a loaded team. Here's a good test to see how loaded. Can the team kind of put this kid on their shoulders and get through this game against, at that point, a really hot Miami team? And from the first play, he just looked so unfazed and steady. And you guys know there's some of those guys that just, they look like they think they're the baddest dude on the planet, even if they might not quite be. And he looked like that from his first snap, and it's not stopped over 5.5 games now.
What's the thing for you, as you've watched over the last month or so, that's the most impressive on Brock?
I think it's that. I mean, obviously all the skills are impressive, and he's got a lot around him, and the numbers are great. You can find so many different ways to slice it where he's been historically good through 5 games. But for me, it's just that old kind of like scout eye test sort of thing where I see this guy walking around like he thinks he's Tom Brady.
Do you think that the Christian McCaffrey acquisition is one of the great ones in sports, like in terms of regular season trades? We were just doing the Bay Area, like Hunter Pence was a great trade, helped the Giants win a championship. Going back, Fred Dean in 1981, they acquire him, the 49ers do. He ends up being a Hall of Fame defensive end. They win championships with him. Like, I know there's others, but in recent memory, this is about as good of a trade as I can think of. He's their team MVP right now.
Yeah, that's a great point. And let's remember where they were when they got him.
Yep.
They were 3-3. They ease him in the first week they get him and fall to 3-4. They haven't lost since. And you guys know, like, there's so much more going on than just him. But I think to move the needle on a team as loaded as that, and I've gotten to see that a little bit, and it's a little bit of a stretch to make this comparison, but when you hear the Dodgers talk about it a lot in baseball, for them to make a move, it's got to move the needle on what's already a really stacked roster. Mm-hmm. You've seen them make huge flashes through the years. I think this is a similar thing where if you were going to make a deal, it had to move the needle. It had to be special. And he was the perfect piece to bring in and complement those other pieces that they've already got.
Joe, I hate you for bringing up the Dodgers right now, but that's neither here nor there. No,
as it was coming out, guys, I was like, it's not going to go over well with anybody who's listening.
Well, yeah, I wanted to ask you about the Dodgers because they've had a quiet all season, but we're not going to do that. I can't do that after what the Giants are doing.
Yeah, no. Please don't. Later on, we'll do it. But, Joe, the CMC thing, as you zoom out from a league perspective, an NFL perspective, there's so many great players that never get those playoff moments. Like, I'm watching J.J. Watt have his final game this weekend, and I said to Bonte, I go, this guy deserved to be in the playoffs more so that America could appreciate his game. You're not guaranteed a ring or anything like that, but like from a league perspective, isn't it awesome that CMC finally gets to be showcased on a marquee team in the playoffs?
Yes, and I actually looked that up the other day. I figured I was going to stumble across it at some point this week, but what is his playoff background? And it's the one game as a rookie where he had a good game. He had more than 100 yards, but he at that point was not the star player that he's become. And now you get the skill combined with the star power, and like you said, you put him on maybe the Super Bowl favorite here, and it's special. It's one of those great things for sports where you get the very best guys on the biggest stages, and we all get a chance to take it in.
Yeah, Christian McCaffrey in that game, 6 catches, 101 yards, had the 56-yarder in that game, 6 carries to 16 rushing yards. But I remember Cam Newton almost rallied them in that loss to the Saints. We're talking to Joe Davis, the voice of the Dodgers, but also the voice of Fox Sports, whether it's baseball or football. He'll be here at Levi Stadium alongside Moose Johnson calling this wild card game between the Seahawks and the 49ers. All right, let's flip over to the other side of the football. And obviously, it all starts with number 97. Probably the most feared pass rusher right now with all the pro football. Looks like the odds-on favorite to win Defensive Player of the Year. And that last game against Seattle, he really flashed, dominating the line of scrimmage. Nick Bosa. I mean, what's your thoughts on him and the way he's played this season?
He's so good. He's on his own level with the explosiveness and the way that he thinks the game. And he's such a wonderful combination of so many different tools. And it's hard because it'd be one thing if it was, like, we were talking about J.J. Watt. You look at a defense like Arizona, well, it's Watt and not a whole lot else. But it's not Bosa and then nothing else. There are great players all over the place. So that makes it a really dangerous proposition when you're going up trying to game plan against the 49ers because, you can do what you want to try and take him away, but there's so many other dudes you got to deal with too. So he's a wonderful player who's in a wonderful place. Like you can say about a lot of these guys, part of what makes this team so special is that there are, and it's an obvious thing, there are so many good players, but it's impossible to zero in on one guy if you're an opponent trying to take something away.
Joe, when you and the Fox crew and Moose Johnson meet with other teams and you start discussing the Niners defense, does the conversation start with Nick Bosa, and how long does that conversation last?
Yeah, it definitely does. And, as much as I just made the point, like,
Right.
You got Fred Warner, you got Charvarius Ward having the year he's having. Yeah, Bosa's on his own level. And I think that it's on this defense and it's across the league. There are other great pass rushers too, but the kind of season he's having, and also when you look at, he's not that far removed from a catastrophic knee injury. It's awesome that he's gotten to the point where, you figured he could get at the start of his career, but a player goes through an injury like that, you wonder if they're ever going to get back to that level of play. So that adds another level of, I think, nice context to what he's doing, that he's been able to come back from that injury and look better than ever.
Joe, we've now referenced Moose Johnson like 5 times, I feel like, in this interview.
Moose.
I mean, he's the Cowboys. I hated the Cowboys, but I have tremendous respect for him as an analyst. My buddy over here, my partner, Bonte, he does television for the Warriors, and he always looks dapper, but no one has a better knot in their tie. The way he puts Moose's knot in the tie. How does he get it just right? It is like, it's wide, and it fits just right. My neck never looks anywhere close to his. How does he do it, Joe?
Part of it is probably because your neck doesn't look anything like it. Part of ours will, because he's the Moose, right? That's a good question, and I guess, we're 18 weeks into our first year together here. I should have a better idea what his secret is. But he does, now that I'm thinking about it, disappear for a little longer than most of my partners typically do, about an hour before, and then, he comes back and he's got a little more of a smirk on his face. Nah, I don't know. You're right. I'm going to have to glean that from him here in our little playoff run. How do you get that tie looking like that? And I'll pass it along to you if I find it out.
Please.
I'm a single knot guy, Joe, so don't let him lie to you on television. I just mail it in. Chris Mullen and Festus and Darrell, they got the double knots and the triple knots. I'm a single knot guy, Joe. I haven't advanced that far yet.
Fair. I'm with you.
Yeah.
What's the element of this game? We're Niner fans, right? What's the element of this game as you look at from Seattle's perspective? What would give them opportunities to feel confident heading into this matchup?
So they got dominated in the 2 games in the regular season. But with a few things, when I look at it, I'm like, okay, if I'm Pete Carroll on the Seahawks, what gives me hope that there's a shot here?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the turnover margin in those 2 games was 4-0. So that obviously ain't good, but that's also a very clear, and I don't want to say easy, but that's an area where you say, okay, you could really flip things around if that's a little bit different. So the turnover margin, they committed 18 penalties in the 2 games. That's un-Pete Carroll team-like. And then Kenneth Walker, who's kind of transformed them here down the stretch, first meeting between the teams was his NFL debut. He got 4 carries in mop-up duty. Second game between the 2 teams, he was coming off an ankle injury and was diminished. So if I'm the Seahawks, I'm looking at those few things and saying it's not a stretch to say that it could be different this time, because those are a few big areas that were kind of outliers.
Interesting, Joe. That's interesting. The weakness of the 49ers, if there is a weakness defensively, is it the back end of the secondary? Is it Diameter Lenore? Do teams think, you know what, we can beat this team deep if we can just contain Bosa for about 3 seconds?
Yeah, and I think it's relative. They're still really good against the pass. I know Lenore's shown some issues lately where, like the jump ball against Brown last week, but it's all relative. And yeah, that's maybe where you go, but if it's raining buckets on Saturday, you may not be able to do that if you're the Seahawks.
No doubt. Who does it benefit in a wet surface before we let you go, Joe? Does it benefit a defensive lineman? Does it benefit an offensive lineman, a receiver, a corner? What do you hear from Moose? What do you hear from other players when it comes to a wet surface that we're going to see on Saturday?
I don't know if it's as much positionally as it is. It probably levels the playing field a little bit in a game that might on paper seem and in play seem a little bit lopsided. I think that it brings in, it mucks up the game a little bit, where it gives an underdog a chance to feel like maybe there's another little dynamic at play here that they can take advantage of. But, it's not like the 49ers are going to be bummed out to play in a game that is defined by the run if it turns into that.
No doubt. No, they got 3 backs now with Elijah Mitchell, Jordan Mason, and, of course, Christian McCaffrey. Kenneth Walker the third on the other side. Joe, man, good stuff.
Yeah, big
Have
fan,
a great
Joe.
call. Have a great call Saturday at Levi Stadium. Should be a lot of fun as the Niners and Seahawks kick off the NFL postseason.
Thank you, boys. I can't wait either.